This is a true story that still scares me whenever I think about it. A woman lived alone in a row house. The houses were connected side by side, and the basements were separated by a thin brick wall. It wasn't a strong wall, just old bricks stacked together many years ago. If someone made noise on the other side, you could hear it clearly. Her neighbor was a strange man. He lived alone, too. He barely spoke to anyone, and he was always awake at night. Almost every night, she could hear strange noises coming from the other side of the basement wall. Sometimes it sounded like something heavy was being dragged. Sometimes it sounded like knocking. Slow, repeated knocking. At first, she ignored it. Old houses make noises. Shared walls carry sound. She told herself it was nothing. But then the man started acting strange whenever he saw her outside. He would just stand there and stare. Not a normal look, just a long, silent stare that made her uncomfortable. Sometimes at night, she would hear loud banging on the wall, like someone was hitting it with something heavy. She complained once, and the man just smiled and said he was doing some work in the basement. After a few weeks, something strange happened. The woman suddenly stopped showing up to work. At first, her workplace thought she was sick. But after 2 days with no calls and no messages, they got worried and called the police for a wellness check. The police arrived at her house. The front door was locked. The house was quiet. Too quiet. They went inside and searched the rooms, but she wasn't there. Then one of the officers heard a sound coming from the basement. It was the sound of an electric saw. They slowly walked down the basement stairs and followed the sound. The noise was coming from the other side of the brick wall, the neighbor's basement. When they looked closely at the wall, they noticed something disturbing. Some of the bricks had been removed. There was a hole in the wall, just big enough to see through. One of the officers looked through the hole, and then he immediately stepped back and called for backup. On the other side of the wall, in the neighbor's basement, the man was cutting a human body with an electric saw. The entire basement floor was covered in blood. The body was the missing woman. The man had broken through the brick wall from his basement, entered her basement at night, killed her, and dragged her body back through the wall into his own basement. The police arrested him and put him in the back of the police van. But when they reached the police station and opened the door, the man was dead. He had used his belt to hang himself inside the van. To this day, whenever I see a house with a shared basement wall, I think about that story, and I wonder what could be happening on the other side of the wall. Story 2, The Woman Who Tried to Steal a Baby. This story happened in a supermarket parking lot in the middle of the day with people all around. That's what makes it so terrifying. A couple had a small baby. One day they went to the supermarket together, but the baby started crying a lot inside the store. So the husband took the baby outside to calm her down while the wife stayed inside to finish shopping. He placed the baby, still in her car seat carrier, on a bench outside the store and gently rocked the carrier until she fell asleep. While she was sleeping, he got a phone call from work and started talking, still gently rocking the baby. A few minutes later, a well-dressed woman in her 30s walked toward him. She smiled and looked at the baby. This wasn't unusual. People often came to look at the baby because she was very cute. Before the husband could even finish saying, "Sorry, she's sleeping," the woman suddenly picked up the baby carrier and started walking away. At first, his brain didn't even understand what was happening. It was so sudden and so bold that he froze for a second. Then he stood up and said, "Excuse me, put the baby down." The woman started walking faster. Now he panicked and ran after her, trying to grab the carrier back. When he tried to pull it from her hands, the woman suddenly started screaming, "Help! He's trying to kidnap my baby! Help! Call the police!" People in the parking lot turned and saw a man grabbing a baby carrier from a woman who was screaming for help. They immediately assumed the man was the kidnapper. Within seconds, two men ran over and tackled the husband to the ground. He kept screaming, "That's my baby! She's stealing my baby!" But no one believed him. The woman kept acting scared and shaken, holding the baby carrier and slowly walking toward a minivan. The husband was pinned to the ground, unable to move, while the crowd shouted at him and told him to stop resisting. He tried to say, "I have pictures of my baby on my phone," but that only made things worse. People thought he meant he had creepy photos and became even more aggressive. One man even kicked him hard in the ribs while he was on the ground. At that exact moment, the wife came out of the store and saw a crowd of people holding her husband on the ground. She thought he was being robbed. Then she noticed something even worse. He didn't have the baby. She looked around and saw a woman walking away quickly across the parking lot, carrying the baby carrier. Her mother instinct took over. She ran as fast as she could, caught up to the woman, grabbed her by the hair, and pulled her back with all her strength. The woman lost her grip and dropped the baby carrier. The mother immediately threw herself on top of the carrier, covering her baby with her body so no one could take her again. And the most shocking part? The woman who tried to steal the baby simply got up, walked to her minivan, and drove away. No one stopped her. A few minutes later, the police arrived. Even then, some people were still telling the police that the husband was the kidnapper. The police even asked the parents if maybe the woman was confused and thought it was her baby. But the truth was much more disturbing. The woman had almost successfully kidnapped a baby in broad daylight, in a crowded parking lot, by pretending to be the mother and making the real father look like the criminal. And if the mother had come out of the store just 1 minute later, they might have never seen their baby again.